Hi Cancer, and welcome to your January 2024 horoscope. I hope you enjoyed December. Happy New Year, you made it to January. January has one very big event, which is Pluto entering Aquarius. We'll get a little bit more into what this means for you later in the horoscope. All of January, we also have Saturn sextile Jupiter. Saturn is in a water sign and Jupiter is in an earth sign. And because of this, I think the month will be quite focused on practical needs, our needs of taking care of our body, making sure we have a roof over our head, that we're sleeping, eating well, and also taking care of our emotional needs as well. On January 1st, we have Venus in your 6th house, squaring Saturn in your 9th house. You have really been valuing your work recently, being of service to others, and also establishing a really good routine that can support you through all of that. Because if we don't take care of ourselves first, it's very hard to take care of others, of course. But at the same time, with Saturn in your 9th house, you have a lot of responsibilities with your studies and maybe even with some traveling that you're doing. And these two might be pulling you at odds with each other. Do you spend your time and energy on one, or do you spend it on the other? It's of course possible to find a balance. Just notice on this day what's coming up and what's best for you in that moment. On January 4th, Mars enters Capricorn, and Capricorn is your 7th house. So there is a bit of assertiveness, passion, maybe some arguing happening in your relationships. It could turn into a more combative situation, but it doesn't have to. It could also mean that you're really focusing a lot of your willpower and energy in your relationships as well. And your relationships are actually going to continue to be an important theme for the whole month. This is because there's a new moon in Capricorn in your 7th house. The new moon is happening on January 11th, and the sun and the moon are actually quite close to Pluto. To be fair, they're not super close, they're about 9 degrees away, but still Pluto is in Capricorn during this new moon, and therefore I think has still a Plutonian coloring on this new moon. During this new moon, we also have an interesting aspect between Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. So Mars is sextiling Saturn, Saturn is sextiling Jupiter, and Jupiter is trining Mars. These three planets are highlighting your 7th, 9th, and 11th house. These are quite expansive houses, especially the 9th and the 11th, meaning that you're expanding your horizons, you're learning, you're traveling, you're meeting new people. But at the same time, you're also having your relationships, wanting to get closer to others and form more intimate partnerships as well. And all of these might be supporting each other. These are quite easy aspects, sextiles and a trine. So it might be that the new people you're meeting or the things that you're learning are giving you all of a sudden a burst of energy, motivation, an excitement to be alive, that you're also translating that and giving it back into your relationships as well. Because this new moon is colored by Pluto, see if you can really find a power, a purpose, and a meaningfulness with your relationships. On January 14th, we have Venus in your 6th house, sextiling the South Node in your 4th house. The South Node has been in your 4th house since November 2023, asking you to drop any of the ways you're trying to please your family. It's time to really become your own person and not do things because they want you to do them. Because Venus is sextiling the South Node during this time, you could be really using the power and motivation from serving others to give you the courage to stop doing things that your family wants you to do that you really don't enjoy doing. Venus continues to travel through 6th house, and on the 19th, it squares Neptune in your 9th house. Because this is a square, it might be a little bit harder and it might really ask for some action from you. And because it's Neptune in your 9th house, just notice on this day if you are really disillusioned with some of the things that you're learning. Maybe you're really painting them into a beautiful light without necessarily realizing that every coin has a second side, that not all of the new things that you're learning about are actually as wonderful as they may seem, or a new way of living that you want to adopt for yourself. So don't make any concrete actions on this day, and really question anything that seems too good to be true. Take all of it with a grain of salt. Finally, we get to the big event in January. On January 20th, the Sun and Pluto are conjunct. They're conjunct at the last degree of Capricorn, and just a couple of hours later, the Sun enters Aquarius. A day later, on the 21st, Pluto also enters Aquarius. So there's a lot happening these 2 days, so let's unpack it one by one. And let's start with the Sun. With the Sun entering Aquarius on the 20th, it's entering your 8th house. And you're going to see a shift from wanting to stay shallow with your one-on-one relationships to wanting to go deeper. Perhaps you're having some really difficult conversations with these people all of a sudden, or talking about things that you wouldn't necessarily openly talk about usually, like money or the things going on behind closed doors. Now, with Pluto entering your 8th house, it's going to stay there for 20 years. So this is quite a long transit. So there's no need to feel like you need to solve everything on the 20th or the 21st. However, there might be some big themes coming up on this day that are actually going to be themes following you around for 20 years. And Pluto entering your 8th house means that you're going to be finding a lot of power and meaning and purpose by becoming vulnerable with others. You're going to really learn how to let down your walls and start to rely on others. Notice if there were any big things coming up last year, so March to June 2023, because these might also be the themes coming up around this time. January 23rd, Venus enters Capricorn and enters your 7th house. So again, even more relationship focus for you, Cancer. Mars has been in your 7th house since the beginning of the month, which we talked earlier may have brought a sort of assertiveness or a bit of a fighter spirit in you to your relationships. And now that Venus has also joined Mars in your 7th house, it helps mellow out that fighter spirit a bit. Not only are you worried now about holding your ground and drawing your boundaries in the sand, but also you want to make sure that you have fun doing it and that you're doing it in a way that's pleasant and a way that you enjoy. On the 25th of January, we have a full moon in Aquarius in your 8th house. The Sun and Pluto are still quite close with each other. They're about 4 degrees apart. So I would say this full moon is also colored with the Neptune influence. The moon is in your 2nd house. And don't forget that sextile between Saturn and Jupiter is also still very much happening. So since the 20th onwards, you are learning how to be vulnerable. We already talked about that. And with this full moon, it might be that you are learning something new that you didn't consider about what vulnerability means, about all of the ways that perhaps you're scared to get open and honest with somebody else. Perhaps it makes you feel a little bit insecure to be able to rely on somebody like that, to share your intimate thoughts with somebody. And I wouldn't be surprised if all of the exploring you're doing, because you have a lot of action in the 9th and 11th house, if that is giving you some really wonderful juice to share with your partner. A lot of the times when we're exploring and trying new things, we feel rejuvenated, we feel alive again. And I would recommend that you channel that back into your relationships. Share some of that aliveness spirit with your loved ones. January 28th is also quite an interesting day because there's a couple of things going on. First of all, Mars is squaring the South and the North Node. Uranus stations direct, and the aspect we saw earlier in the month between Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter is actually happening again. This time not with Mars, this time with Venus. So let's unpack this day. Mars in contact with the nodes is asking you to do the scary thing in order to evolve and become a better person. The nodes right now for you are highlighting your family axis, your family house. So really be courageous with all of the people-pleasing tendencies you have with your family. Don't be afraid to rock the boat a little bit because it's going to help you become an even better person. And it might be that your partner needs you to do that in order for your relationship to continue to thrive. Notice what happened on January 11th when we had the aspect between Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. Because on this day, we have pretty much the exact same thing happening. This time, however, it's with Venus, so it's going to be a little bit more gentle. And we close off the month on the 30th with another Mars transit. This time, Mars is trining Uranus. With Uranus in your 11th house, you've been pursuing your own goals and you've been unapologetic about it. Sometimes people have, future goals of buying a house and getting married and all of that, which is, of course, also completely fine. But you have really been forming your own opinions on where you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years. And you're wrapping up the month by feeling motivated and inspired. With Mars in your 7th house, you've been courageous. You have showed up in your relationships and set your boundaries. And this is motivating you even further to continue being your true self and heading towards that long-term vision that you have for yourself. So wow, Cancer, you have a lot of relationship focus this month, and you're also doing quite a bit of exploring. Perhaps you're reading new books, you're traveling, you're meeting new people. Don't forget to, at the end of the day, come home and allow yourself to get deeply vulnerable with another human being. Cancer, I hope you enjoyed January. I hope this horoscope helps guide you a bit through the month. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to catch the February horoscope as well. I hope to see you again soon.